Well, we're going to do a 2-lap race on the 1967 Nordschleife GP circuit. It's going to be a mixture of 1970s prototypes, Ferrari 512Ss, Ferrari 512 SCLs, as well as Porsche 917 Langhecks. This is on 100% difficulty, 5% variation, and 45% aggression from the AI. I'm still getting used to this track. I've gotten pretty alright with the car, but should prove to be a hell of a time. So, let's see how it's like. Starting off, leaving the start line into the button hook of the old GP circuit. These prototypes possessed a 600 odd horsepower, propelled by either, in the Porsche's case, a 5-liter flat 12, or in the Ferraris, a 5-liter V12. These cars were very quick, even by modern standards, attaining 200 miles per hour pretty easily in their top gear. But a problem with the time was braking technology was well behind engine technology. These cars were stopping on little steel disc rotors. So that means when you're coming to a stop, you are using every ounce of the brake pedal to slow down. Oftentimes just mashing it to the floor and then feathering off the moment you feel the wheels lock up. These cars were also in the infancy of modern aerodynamics. Before these cars and in the late 60s, really when aerodynamics took off, nobody really used it before, so they were still really working out the kinks and understanding how aerodynamics affected these cars. And coming on here, this is the real first high-speed section of the track. Going at just a little airborne, upsetting the car into the right turn here. The old Nordschleife was known for several jumps throughout its layout. It was also a very rough tarmac surface to race over, causing a lot of unbalancing of the car when you went over them at high speeds. Another thing you'll notice is there's no barriers around the track like the modern circuit. Safety was a very little thought of thing in racing back in these days. So one mistake and you were propelled off the track into a tree at very high speeds. Oftentimes, if you survived the impact, you'd be then lit on fire by the high-octane leaded race fuel they used. These AIs, especially the ones in the Ferrari 512 Longtails, have very erratic braking patterns. So a big part of surviving this circuit, at least in Assetto Corsa with AI, is playing the brake check game. Not rear-ending somebody at 100 miles an hour because they decided to slam their brakes on. That corner there, being a little off camber, which means if you go over it with just too much throttle or too sharp of steering input, will spin you out. coming into the second real high-speed section of the track. One difference between the modern track and the old track is that drop right there. If you don't nail that one just right at the right speeds, it'll upset the car and you'll go into that big bank on the left side. And we're entering the second half of the track almost, right before carousel. This off-camber corner is much different than the modern circuit. It's off-camber, which means you need to take it at significantly slower speeds. Coming up into carousel itself. This is pretty much where I marked the track in half. This is the halfway point for me. This marks the section of the track that is vastly different than the modern circuit. Several of these corners are different. There's different elevation changes compared to the modern track. These corners are relatively unchanged. This corner fundamentally doesn't seem much different, but it doesn't have the curbs that are oftentimes used in the modern circuit to just kind of clip and get a little better apex, followed by that much steeper drop-off that is not present in the modern circuit. To me, this section of the track feels vastly different. Speeds feel as if they need to be taken at much slower than the modern track. This section itself remains largely unchanged. But coming into the end of it, there is a large dip that is no longer present. Really likes to upset the car when you go through it. And then up to a steep left-hander into the second carousel. Corners up here feel about the same as well, but then it'll bring you into the back straight, which is radically different. Modern track, it is very flat into a gentle uphill. The old track had several rolling hills that you would get damn near airborne on, especially this one right here. These prototypes easily attaining 205 miles an hour before you enter the braking zone. Up here, there's a little bump that'll upset the car, bringing the front wheels off the ground. That completes one lap. I only did one lap because I did end up taking the lead in the first lap, and I figured there was no point in watching an empty racetrack.